Let me start with congratulations on Peacemaker. I saw the first 7 and I was begging James to have him show me episode 8. And he's like, no way.
Stephen, it is, I love episode 8 in a way that I cannot even describe. And listen, when you see it, you'll see why we did not reveal it earlier. But, it is the culmination of all these incredibly intricate threads that he has been weaving through 1 through 7. They all come together beautifully in 108. I love it. I mean, I think that, one of the great things that James has been able to do is to give true character development and arcs to the entire ensemble, not just Peacemaker.
Yeah, he told me, I was wondering if it was a VFX reason, but he's like, no, it's just for spoilers. He's like, I don't want them getting out there. I'm like, right. I don't blame you. I get it. You've produced a number of things, but I know there must be some stuff in your back pocket that you're waiting to get made. So if you had the ability to get the financing for any project tomorrow, what would be the thing that you make and why?
I think it has to be the Javelin Weasel Odd Couple show. They live together in New York. They're roommates, and it's just their life together in New York City. No, listen, we have some other things in development that are real priorities. Some spin-offs, some originals. I think DC has such a deep well of characters, and ultimately what it comes down to is finding the right filmmaker to pair those properties up with, because you need a James Gunn to say, what would make the Suicide Squad work? Let's do it as a 1970s war caper movie,
Sure.
Or
but I
don't
even mean just DC. I just mean in general. Like, is there a script that you've had for like years that you're like, this needs to get made?
Okay, yes. I'll tell you, there is one. It's written by this British, it's going to sound weird, this British historian, Simon Sebag Montefiore. It's called Winston and Joe, and it is about the first meeting of Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin in 1942 in Moscow, when Churchill travels there to meet with him and basically keep him, from capitulating. It's like Frost Nixon, but with those two great characters. That is one I would like to make. So, Stephen, if you could provide the financing for that, I'm ready to go make that movie this year.
Sometimes putting it out into the ether like this, you never effing know.
I think it's the first time I've said it out loud. So this could be my manifestation of it. Thank you.
Exactly. So you've been working with James, I believe, since 2007, 2008. It's been a long time, maybe even earlier, and I don't know. What do you think would surprise people to learn about James based on your long history of working with him?
I don't know that people would be surprised, because James is he wears his heart on his sleeve. James is pretty much an open book. Creatively, the things that he loves, the things that he hates, he's never really hidden who he is. So I don't know that people would necessarily be surprised by anything about him, other than, no, I think people know who he is. If you've seen Slither, Super, Guardians of the Galaxy, Peacemaker, and the Suicide Squad, you really know a lot about James, because he's been given incredible freedom creatively to make these shows and to talk about the things that are meaningful to him, whether it's toxic masculinity, father-son relationships, mother-daughter relationships, familial relationships, darkness, depression, what it's like to be an underdog, what it's like to be an outsider. I think he's pretty much an open book.
So obviously, like everyone, I love Eagly, and obviously Eagley is going to be one of the favorites of the series. What was it like for you, though? Because you're making this obviously on a budget. What was it like when you read the scripts and James is telling you, we're going to have a bald eagle as his pet, and he's going to be a really big part of the series?
Oh, I loved it. He always talked about Eagley, even before he wrote these episodes. I think he really talked about the bald eagle that was his sidekick / best friend. I love how James anthropomorphizes animals, and if he can make you care about a talking tree or a raccoon, or what he did with Sebastian or Weasel in the Suicide Squad, I couldn't wait to see what he was going to do with Eagley. And I love the character. And I love, and you've seen it, just there's kind of a nurturing side to him. He really wants to protect and look after his best friend, Peacemaker. I love what he did with it. So no, we embraced the idea of Eagley, as did HBO Max, instantaneously.
Yeah. I also, the thing about James is he makes all of his animal characters feel flesh and blood. You know what I mean? Like you really care about these characters.
Very, very much so. Very, very much so. I mean, listen, even from that first episode where, Eagley puts his wings around Peacemaker, and then the kind of callback to that later on, it brings a tear to your eye. It's beautiful. You can't believe that you are emotionally engaged in a bald eagle hugging a reprehensible human being like Christopher Smith.
No, I'm 100% agree with you. Obviously, so I'm going to bring up something else. I spoke to Zach. Listen, I love Shazam, and I was fortunate enough to be on set, and I spoke to Zach recently, and he thinks that the sequel is even better than the first. And I'm just curious, do you agree with that? Obviously, I'm sure you agree, but what can you say about it?
Well, even though this is a Peacemaker conversation, but I loved the first Shazam movie. I thought it was beautifully done. I thought that David Sandberg nailed that tone so incredibly well. The eye of the needle was so small to get it right, but he really did nail it. I feel like this second one has more emotion, more humor, but it also has bigger action, bigger set pieces, some great villains. I just feel like it's everything that we loved in the first movie, but really turned up to 11. So I love it. I think the addition of some of these new characters with, Rachel Ziegler and Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu are fantastic additions. I love that, the kids are all a little bit older now, so we get to have a little bit more fun in kind of an edgier fashion with them. But yeah, and Zach inhabits that character in such a beautiful fashion. So, to have been able to make a second one of those, it's a thrill.
Well, also the other thing is when you're making the first movie of anything, you're figuring out what's going to work and what resonates with the fans. And it's like, the first film is so good and people love it. I'm sure that gave you more freedom on set to further push what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, listen, the glory of having the same filmmaker, David Sandberg, who, had lived through the first one and then really knew what he wanted for the second one to amp it up, made it was actually an incredibly, it was a great shoot. It was very, very smooth. We had an incredible script from Henry Gayden and Chris Morgan. So it was a really smooth shoot. And I think, now obviously having seen, cuts of the movie, it's really reflected in that final product.
Yeah, I'm already given the wrap-up signal. I will just say that I just have to tell you that the opening credits on Peacemaker are A+. I love them so much that I could keep screaming about how awesome.
Do you want to taste it? That's all.
Oh my God.
Do you want to taste it? No, I mean, listen, James wrote that choreography into the very first draft that I ever read of episode 1. He was like, here's the intro. Here's the dance number. Here's the fully choreographed dance number that they take really seriously, that they are just taking it really serious. And that was it. He always knew what he wanted, but I love it. And I hope we've created something that's unskippable. I hope people will watch it each time.
Oh, I watched all 7 episodes and every single time it brought a smile to my face. Seriously.
That's great. That's great. Well, we're bringing back hair metal.
I love it. Hey, listen, man, I wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah, we'll chat soon.
Yeah, and obviously there's a lot more to talk about soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.